Hey everybody, it's P-Dubs. Thanks as always for hanging out upstairs with us and for checking out the channel. And on today's episode, I wanted to catch up with all of you on what I would like to see from AtGames and Magic Pixel when it comes to the new virtual pinball games that they are creating from scratch for Killer Instinct, Battletoads, and more right after this. Okay guys, we're back, and as you're well aware, AtGames signed a partnership with Rare, and we are going to be seeing the Battletoads Killer Instinct series, 19 titles from Rare coming to the AtGames Legends Arcade family of products, playable on all of the AtGames Legends Arcade family products. But they also announced as a coup de grace, hey guys, guess what? We're also going to be creating brand new virtual pinball games based upon these IPs, including a Killer Instinct virtual pinball game, Sea of Thieves pinball game, and Battletoads. I really wanted to focus on Battletoads and Killer Instinct. So in the past, AtGames teamed up with Magic Pixel, and they created some brand new virtual games based upon the Taito intellectual property, a bunch of Taito arcade games. What's really interesting about these games is most of these games were released in the 1980s, and this is when the solid-state version of pinball was in play. However, the games that they released and developed with Magic Pixel were predominantly EM-style games. EM-style games were made by pinball manufacturers back in the 1970s, so it felt a little out of place when you're playing these Taito pinball games, playing in an EM style versus more of a solid-state style of gameplay. Next, we saw AtGames partner up with Magic Pixel again to create some brand new virtual pinball games from using their partnership with Natural History Magazine to create natural history pinball tables. These were more of the Zakaria Deluxe style pinball games that Magic Pixel is known for and have released on many consoles and other systems. What's interesting about these is you can do whatever you want with these because there were no previous games or things to reference. Also, when it came to the Dr. Seuss games, they continued on but did an even more advanced EM style, adding much better DMD animations, storylines, table goals, things like that. So as they've progressed, they've continued to improve. But now you have a major license. Now you have something that you could truly make special and something that nobody has ever seen before when it comes to these IPs, namely Killer Instinct and Battletoads. So what do you do, at least in my opinion, to make these an awesome virtual pinball game experience? In my opinion, you gotta tug on nostalgia. You gotta pull on the nostalgia heartstrings, especially for people who are fans of these games, who are going to be interested in purchasing these games. They're going to remember what these games were and when they came out. So for instance, Battletoads came out in 1991 by Rare in the arcades. A very early 90s arcade beat 'em up, and a super fun one at that, in my opinion. In my opinion, you don't go back to the 1970s or the 1980s. You gotta go 1990s pinball style for these games. These games were made in the 90s. So make 1990s style pinball games, and I think you're gonna have a winner. For example, obviously, you don't want to copy off of these tables that have already been done in the past, but use these for inspiration. AtGames, make sure Magic Pixel takes a good look at pinball games released in the 1990s. In 1991, the same year Battletoads was released, we got the Terminator 2. What made Terminator 2 pinball game in 1991 super awesome was the awesome artwork on the table, and only having, guess what? 2 flippers. That's right, AtGames keeps burying us in their latest virtual pinball game releases with flippers upon flippers upon flippers, as well as multiple levels on the table. Terminator 2 was a single level game, just had a couple of ramps and things like that, but also a really cool cannon shot, which ended up making a reappearance back when they did the AC/DC table later on. But this is the style back in 1991, and this is what they should do when it comes to something like Battletoads. Another cool early 1990s pinball game that they can use for inspiration for Battletoads would be Bram Stoker's Dracula, released by Williams in 1993. Just like Terminator 2, this game has a lot of callouts. That's right, they need to do callouts. We need some of the original voices or sound effects and music from the actual Battletoads game. You actually want to hear the grunts and the sounds that you heard when playing the game as the callouts when you're playing Battletoads now in 2023. Another game released in 1993, so if you can imagine, hey guys, You know, Battletoads comes out in 91, 1993. Let's just say Williams decided to make a Battletoads themed pinball game. Well, guess what? Indiana Jones, the Pinball Adventure. This is another great game to use as inspiration when making Battletoads as a virtual pinball game. And again, we just have two flippers. And not only do we just have two flippers on Indiana Jones, we really have an awesome DMD experience as you're playing these games. So many awesome throwbacks to the original Indiana Jones movies. They really got to utilize this DMD. What I hope to see is a backglass image with the DMD cutout on the bottom, if not on these new 4K pinball machines that are supposedly going to have a DMD there as well. 3 screens total. They really utilize these DMDs. Okay, let's move on to Killer Instinct. This is the one, I've mentioned this in prior content and streams. This is one I'm most worried about. How can you make a fighting game into a really cool virtual pinball game experience? I don't know. We'll see what they come up with, but if they need some inspiration, here's some things that I would like to see. Killer Instinct was released in the arcades in 1994, so that means if a real pinball machine was going to be created after the arcade game was released, you really should be looking at anything made from, let's just say, 1994 and later as inspiration. For starters, one of the biggest ones and one of the most popular pinball games of all time, released by Bally in 1995, was Attack from Mars. Again, we just have a two-flipper pinball game. Two-flipper pinball game with a cool backglass and a really awesome animated DMD with all kinds of built-in mini games as you're playing. This is an awesome pinball game. One of my favorites, one of the best of all time. And this is the kind of stuff. Take a look at the table, take a look at the wire ramps and stuff. This is the kind of design you should be using when it comes to Killer Instinct. Another really awesome game would be World Cup Soccer, released in 1994. The World Cup Soccer game is a really, really good real pinball game. So imagine this. And of course, it's been done in virtual pinball form, and it's a fun experience. But also, again, this is the style. This is the 1990s style. This is the kind of pinball I want to see at Games and Magic Pixel. And of course, one of my favorites, released by Bally in 1996, Elvira Scared Stiff. This was a really cool game. Not as innovative as some others on here, but they do have an awesome crate. And whenever you hit the crate lock is very satisfying. Also, the on the back glass, having the spinning spider wheel, that was really cool. Can we get some animated back glasses with these games? Like, for instance, Killer Instinct. Wouldn't it be really cool if, like, during the game you unlock a mode and all of a sudden on the back glass turns into the actual Killer Instinct game and you're actually fighting a character on the back glass, possibly trying to perform an ultra combo. That would be super awesome in my opinion. And let's not forget another one. This one made by Data East. You have the Royal Rumble pinball machine. This thing came out in 1994, same year that Killer Instinct Arcade was released. And since this is technically a wrestling game, albeit you could kind of consider it a fighting genre games, here's another way you could go with Killer Instinct is that this in Royal Rumble, your goal is to collect wrestlers and complete modes. So maybe in Killer Instinct, if you're gonna, like, how do I make this into a virtual pinball game? Maybe you have to collect the characters as you play through the modes and try to collect all the fighters from the original arcade game. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. And there's more fantastic classics from the early 90s. In, like, 1994, you had Demolition Man. In 1995, you had Baywatch. These are great, real pinball machines. AtGames, Magic Pixel. Head on over to your local arcade, play these games that only have two flippers for the most part, as well as maybe some cool cannon shots or things like that. And please use these, I hope, as inspiration for creating some really cool virtual pinball games in a 1990s style based upon these 1990s arcade games. I don't want to see 1970s style. I don't want to see early 1980s style, and I sure as heck don't want to see Zaccaria Deluxe style. I want to see 1990s style pinball with these Killer Instinct, as well as these Battletoads and, you know, Sea of Thieves. Do whatever you want. It's a pirate game. I don't care. But at least get those two games right, and I think they'll be a smash hit. But that's just my opinion. That's just my opinion, but I want to know yours. What do you want them to use? What real pinball game should they use as inspiration to make Battletoads and Killer Instinct into a virtual pinball game? Leave me that in the comments after this video's over. If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor, give me a thumbs up on the way out. And as always, my dudes, Thank you for subscribing.